They say marriage is a blessing. A union between two souls. A dance between hearts. But mine was a performance I perfected on a stage with no applause. When I met Depo, I was 25, fresh out of my youth service, full of dreams and stubborn hope. He was everything a woman like me thought she wanted. Tall, charming, God-fearing, at least on paper, and ambitious with that dangerous kind of smile that could lead you straight to ruin and have you thanking him for the fall. He pursued me with the tenacity of a hunter and the sweetness of a poet. Flowers. Surprises. Just checking on you, calls at midnight. My friends warned me. Amara, don't let the attention fool you. But I wasn't fooled. I was desperate to believe. So I married him. The first year was golden. We traveled, laughed, made love like the world was ending. He would wake me with kisses, cook on Saturdays and pray over our meals. But somewhere between year 2 and year 3 the shift came. It was slow, subtle. He no longer reached for my hand in public. No longer kissed my forehead before leaving for work. No longer asked, "How was your day?" like he actually wanted to know. And then the questions started. When are we going to have a baby? Not from him at first, but from his mother, his sisters, even our church pastor. I would smile politely and say, "In God's time." But Depo's silence was louder than their words. He stopped laughing when I joked about names. Stopped lighting up at baby showers. He began sleeping closer to the edge of the bed. That was the year I started buying ovulation kits like breath mints. That was the year I stopped dreaming. One night, I stood before the mirror in our room. My reflection stared back. Still young, still beautiful, but tired. My hand rested on my flat belly, my heart heavy. I walked back into bed and whispered, "Depo, do you still love me?" He pretended to be asleep. That's when I knew. Our love was starting to rot. From the inside. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. It was past midnight, and I had gotten up to use the bathroom. But as I passed the hallway, I heard his voice. Gentle, low, tender. A tone I hadn't heard in years. "No, I can't stay over tonight. She's still awake. I miss you too, just a few more weeks. I promise." Froze. The tiles beneath my feet suddenly felt like ice. My heart thudded loud and ugly. I stood there in my oversized nightgown, clutching my chest as if that would stop it from breaking. He didn't know I was listening. He didn't see me when he smiled through the phone. That smile. That same smile he used to give me. And when he tiptoed back into the room, slipping under the sheets like nothing happened, I climbed into bed beside him and pretended to. But inside something snapped. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead I started watching. He became a man of patterns. Thursdays he always came home late. Sundays after church he'd claim men's fellowship, but disappear for hours. He never left his phone unattended anymore. The man who once asked for my phone password now flinched when I reached for his. One evening I followed him. I had never done anything like that in my life. I waited until he left the house for what he claimed was a business trip. Then I got into a hired car and told the driver to keep his distance. He drove for almost an hour, to a gated estate in Surreylir. I watched him pull up to a modest apartment. Watched the door open. A woman stepped out. Younger, pretty, round face, and pregnant. My throat closed. She touched his face. He kissed her belly. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in that back seat and whispered the same word over and over. No. Because how could this be my life? I gave this man my body, my time, my heart. And now, this stranger carried the child I had begged God for? I went home that night and folded his clothes. Made his dinner. Cleaned the house like nothing had changed. But everything had. And soon he would know it. He came home late. His shirt smelled of unfamiliar perfume. His lips were chapped. His smile was hollow. "Sorry, traffic," he muttered, walking past me. I followed him into the room. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice steady, too steady even for me. He froze. Then slowly he turned. His eyes narrowed, not with guilt but annoyance. I don't know what you're talking about. I held up a printed photo. I had paid a security guard to snap it with his phone. It showed Depo standing beside her, Ngozi, his hand resting on her stomach, smiling as if he had just won the lottery. His eyes scanned the image. No panic, no shame, just a slow exhale. So, that was all he said. I expected lies. Got indifference. I expected denial. I got the truth served cold like leftover yam. Yes, she's pregnant, he said, unbothered. Before you throw a fit, just hear me out. I laughed. Actually laughed. That kind of sick, hollow laugh you make when someone is trying to pour acid in your mouth and call it honey. He sat on the edge of the bed, palms on his knees, like a boss conducting an interview. I need a child, Amara. It's been almost 7 years. We've prayed. We've fasted. We've seen doctors. There's nothing wrong with me. So the problem is you. He said it with no tremor. Just cold, brutal fact. And I'm tired of waiting, he continued. I've got goals. My father is aging. I need an heir. Ngozi came into my life unexpectedly, but she's giving me what you can't. Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. You could have left, I whispered. I didn't want to disgrace you. Disgrace me. He was sitting there, telling me he impregnated another woman for my own good. I was going to tell you eventually, he added, as though that made things better. But I figured, maybe we can make this work. My brows rose. Make what work? He looked at me dead serious. She stays with us for a while. Until she delivers. You raise the baby. We stay married. Publicly the child is ours. No one needs to know. Just like that. He wanted to stuff his betrayal into my womb and pretend I had birthed it. Wanted me to mother a lie so he could sleep at night. I stared at him long and hard. Then I said the most terrifying word of my life. Okay. Ngozi moved in on a Tuesday afternoon. She arrived with one small gonna-must-go bag and a stomach that led her before anything else. I watched her step out of the taxi, fidgeting with the hem of her dress, her eyes unsure as she looked up at the house. She was nervous, but Depo greeted her at the door like she was an honored guest, helped her carry her bag inside, offered her water, introduced her to the staff like it was all normal. And then, he turned to me. This is Ngozi, he said, trying to sound casual. Ngozi, this is Amara, my wife. My wife. Not his queen. Not his everything. Just the woman who still carried his last name like a noose. Ngozi turned to me, all timid. She stretched out her hand. Good evening, Ma. I took her hand. Squeezed it just hard enough for her to feel it. Welcome to my home, I said, smiling. She relaxed. Poor girl. She had no idea what she'd just walked into. Played my role well. Cooked for her. Made her ginger tea when her back ached. Ran warm water for her baths. Gave her the master bedroom when she couldn't sleep well. Depo was impressed. You're taking this better than I expected, he said one night as he poured himself a drink. I'm not a bitter woman, I replied. I want what's best for the child. He smiled, kissed my cheek, and went off to sleep in the guest room with Ngozi. Every wall in the house knew that truth. But while they planned the baby's arrival, I planned something else. I watched her closely, how she moved, what she feared, what she said in her sleep. She talked in her dreams sometimes. Called for her mother. Mumbled about being scared. About not wanting to be the reason someone got hurt. That was when I realized she didn't know the full picture. He had painted himself as the noble husband trying to save his name. Told her I was weak, fragile, maybe even dying. That he needed her to help carry the family. And in her eyes I was just the older wife. Barren, tired, and conveniently invisible. So I let her believe it. Because the easiest lies to break are the ones people choose to believe. One afternoon, as I massaged her ankles in the sitting room, she said something that almost broke me. I hope I can love this baby as much as you already do. I looked up at her, really looked. And in her eyes, I saw something raw. She didn't just fear me. She pitied me. That was the moment I stopped seeing her as the enemy. She was just a girl trapped in a man's lie, just like me. But only one of us was going to walk away with her freedom. And it wasn't going to be her. There is something dangerous about a woman who is silent when she has every reason to scream. Ngozi and I became inseparable. We cooked together, laughed over morning tea, watched baby videos on YouTube. She began calling me Sister Amma, and I wore that name like a crown, because even she, the woman carrying my husband's child, instinctively knew I was the one holding all the power. And Depo. He thought I had forgiven him, thought he had orchestrated the perfect domestic arrangement, the saintly wife, the grateful mistress, the coming heir. He didn't know I had started recording his calls. He didn't know I had visited the estate agent who signed the lease for the apartment he put Ngozi in, after the baby. A place he planned to hide her once her usefulness in our home was over. He didn't know I had found the documents where he filed to change the baby's birth certificate, removing my name entirely and replacing it with Ngozi's as the legal mother, and his own as sole guardian. His plan was simple. Use Ngozi's body, use my patience, and discard us both. So I smiled wider, loved deeper, planned harder. Ngozi went into labor on a rainy Thursday. Depo was conveniently out of town, some business emergency that smelled like a lie. I took her to the hospital myself, holding her hand through every contraction. She screamed, cried, clutched my arm like a sister in battle. I can't do it, she sobbed. Yes, you can, I whispered, brushing sweat from her forehead. You were made for this. And she was. After hours of agony, the cry came. A baby girl, perfect, soft, full of war and wonder. When the nurse placed her in my arms, something inside me cracked and reformed. The baby stared at me with eyes too wise for someone so new. Her tiny fingers curled around mine. I didn't birth her, but in that moment I knew. She was mine. Ngozi, half-conscious, smiled weakly. Her name is Amarachi. Like you. I kissed her forehead. Thank you. Depo arrived the next morning, bouquet in hand, face full of fake remorse. I'm sorry I wasn't there, he said. How's my daughter? Our daughter, I corrected. He nodded reluctantly, but his eyes told a different story. He didn't look at the baby with love. He looked at her like property, like a solved problem. I handed the baby over gently, watched him hold her awkwardly. She looks like me, he said. No, I replied softly. She looks like her mother. Ngozi turned toward us then, her face drowsy but content. Depo didn't smile. He didn't want Ngozi in the picture anymore. And I knew. He had already begun the process of moving her out of it. But he forgot one thing. He wasn't the only one playing the game. There's a moment every mother knows. A quiet second when your baby looks into your eyes and everything stills. Time forgets to move. Your heartbeat slows. You just exist together. I had that moment with Chitara 2 weeks after we brought her home. I was rocking her gently in my arms, the evening light slipping through the curtains, turning everything soft and gold. She was calm, peaceful. And I was no longer Amarachi, the barren woman. I was Mama. I had signed the birth certificate myself the night of the delivery. Depo never questioned it. He was too busy pretending to be a family man in public, and in private, planning how to remove Ngozi from our lives like a stain. He forgot that silence is a language too, and I had been fluent in it for years. The day Ngozi disappeared, it rained. Heavier than usual. Thunder shook the windows. I walked into her room with a warm bowl of pepper soup. The room was empty. Her clothes gone. Her drawer half open. No note. No trace. Only a clean bed, and silence. First I felt panic. Did she run? Did someone hurt her? Then, as I stepped closer, I saw something tucked beneath her pillow. A bank receipt. 500,000 Nigerian nairas. Transferred from Depo's personal account to hers. I stared at the paper for a long time. My hands stopped shaking. She hadn't vanished. She had been paid to disappear. He came home later that night. He kissed my cheek, asked how the baby was, ate the dinner I made, spoke about his day like he wasn't holding my trust in his palm and crushing it. "So Ngozi's gone," I said between mouthfuls. He nodded. "She said she couldn't handle it. Didn't want the stress. That's what she said." He shrugged. "She was never ready for motherhood." I stared at him. "You paid her, didn't you?" He looked up slow. Smile. "Of course. It was the cleanest way. She didn't want the child anyway. You're better with the baby. This is what we wanted, isn't it?" "No, Depo. This is what you wanted. I wanted a home. A love that wouldn't use me. A child that wouldn't be born from betrayal. And yet, here we were. That night I held Chidera close. Her breath warm against my neck. Her tiny fist wrapped around my finger. I whispered, "You will never know the shame I carried for years. You will never feel unwanted. You are mine now. Name. In soul. In fire." Because Depo may have planned this child to cover his guilt. But she would grow up knowing truth. My truth. I kissed her forehead. "You are the only beautiful thing that ever came out of my pain." And from that moment on I started planning our exit. I started packing slowly, quietly. Not just clothes or diapers. Not just bottles and baby socks. I packed pieces of myself. The woman I used to be before I became invisible in my own home. Every night, while Depo snored beside the baby monitor, I folded memories into silence. I emptied our joint account into a hidden one. I contacted a lawyer, used Ngozi's hospital signature, my name on the birth certificate, and Depo's silence against him. By law, Chidera was mine. She was never his. Not in court, not in spirit. I wrote a letter. Not for Depo. Not for the courts. But for Ngozi. "Dear Ngozi, I hope wherever you are you've found peace. Not just the kind money buys, but the kind that comes when you no longer sleep with guilt between your ribs. I don't hate you. How could I? You were used just like I was. Depo made you believe you were saving him. But you weren't. You were saving me. Because the moment you placed that child in my arms, I remembered how to breathe again. I'm leaving him. I'm taking Chidera. You may never see her again. And I'm sorry for that. But know this. She will grow up loved, strong and whole. She will never know what she was born into. Not the betrayal, not the deal, not the dirt. She will only know she is wanted. I wish you healing. I wish you freedom. And if we ever meet again, I hope we smile instead of flinch. Marachi." I folded the letter. Burned it. Because some truths don't need to be mailed. They just need to be said. That Sunday morning, I dressed Chidera in her finest. A yellow dress with lace at the sleeves. Her hair tied in a tiny puff. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman reborn. I didn't wait for Depo to wake up. I left the house key on the dining table, beside the DNA test he didn't know I had ordered, confirming that he wasn't even the biological father. Another lie. Another layer of rot peeled away. As the cab drove off, I looked back once, not at the house but at the past, and I whispered to Chidera, "You were never the problem. You were the rescue." She gurgled in her sleep. And that was enough. 7 years. That's how long it's been since I walked away from the house that swallowed my womanhood and called it duty. 7 years since I took a child born of betrayal and raised her in the soil of truth. Today, Chidera turned 7. She runs barefoot in the garden now, chasing butterflies in a yellow dress that billows like joy. Her laughter, loud, free, unbroken, reminds me that healing doesn't always look like silence. Sometimes it sounds like giggles between mango trees and questions that begin with, "Mummy, why does the sky cry when it rains?" She calls me Mama. That one word makes all my years of pain feel like the prelude to a song I was always meant to sing. People still ask, "Is she really yours?" And I smile. Because how do you explain to the world that a child doesn't have to come from your body to come from your heart? That some babies are born from wounds, yes. But it's love that chooses who stays to bandage the bleeding. I don't know where Ngozi is. I never searched. Maybe one day Chitara will ask. Maybe one day I'll tell her the whole truth. But not today. Today she only needs to know that she was chosen. Not as a second thought. Not as a patch to cover pain. But as a promise to myself. That I would never again beg someone to see me. Depo. He tried to find us once. Tried to show up with papers and pride. But I had built a life where his name held no power. A life backed by law, by prayer, by pain, and by proof. He gave up eventually. Maybe because he realized the battle wasn't worth the war he would never win. Or maybe because he knew he had already lost the best thing he never truly wanted. I sit now in a small home filled with noise and crumbs and mismatched cups. I write books. Speak to women who wear silence like armor. I teach them how to reclaim their names. Chitara doesn't know the whole story. Not yet. But one day, when she's old enough to understand pain without carrying it, I'll tell her about the baby I longed for, the betrayal that broke me, and the miracle that walked into my life with soft hands and wide eyes. And I'll end with this. You were the baby that was never mine. But somehow, you became everything I ever needed. And that is how I became a mother. Not through a man. Not through blood. But through fire. And still, I came out holding love.